You're now listening to an archive episode of Or So I Thought, back when the podcast went by a different name. I really hope you enjoy it, and please make sure to listen to our new stuff. So, after you're done here, just scroll up, pick a new episode, and press play.
All I know is that I know nothing. The wisest Greeks first uttered those words thousands of years ago. It's a paradox of becoming an adult. At one point, if you're like me, you thought you had everything figured out. And then as time passes, you realize that you actually know less than you thought. This isn't a case against seeking knowledge, but instead, it's a case for a new type of wisdom. The wisdom to accept that most things are out of our control. When we hear stories about our heroes, there's a chunk of it that our mind just skips over. It's usually stated right there in clear terms, but still, we choose to ignore it. And that's the role of luck and timing in every story about success. This week's episode is about just that. I spoke to an author whose book I first read 8 years ago.
I wrote a bunch of books, like 3 number one bestsellers that sold about, 3 million or so copies worldwide. They were all about the dumb, stupid things I did in my 20s. And then I got into my 30s and I stopped doing those and I got married and had a kid. And now I have a business that helps other people turn their ideas into books.
That's Tucker Max. I first read his book, I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, and thought it was the funniest thing ever. And for a 23-year-old, it is the funniest thing ever. And apparently, so did many other guys in their 20s. The book sold millions of copies. But you know how they say that you don't become an astronaut by accident? I wondered, does the same thing apply to a best-selling author? Surely it must be a goal in order to be able to strike it this big. But when I asked Tucker about how he got into writing, his answer surprised me.
So honestly, man, it's sort of like with most things in my life, it was mostly luck. Basically, after I graduated law school, I kind of hated my life, and all my friends were in different cities. I lived in South Florida, which is a terrible place. And so I didn't like my job. I didn't like where I was. So I basically spent my time writing emails to my friends, about all the miserable things that were happening, or when you're miserable and you're a young guy, what do? You go out and you get drunk to forget how terrible it is. And so that's what I did. And funny things would happen, and I would write my friends emails to try and make them laugh and etc. And it never occurred to me that this writing would do anything other than that, just connect me to my friends. But it ended up being something that a lot of people really thought was funny and connected to, and my friends would forward my emails around. And then I ended up getting going. I put my emails, here's what's funny. They all told me to get this published. So I was like, all right, fine, I guess. And then all publishers rejected my stuff. This is like 2001. This is a long time ago. This is before MySpace even existed. This is before, obviously, even before Facebook. And so this is back when people didn't think the internet was a legitimate thing, where people were who, what do you mean you write on the internet? What is a blog? I don't understand what that means. Right. And so I got rejected by every publishing company. So I just put my stuff up for free on the internet. And then MTV filmed this documentary about me, about this guy who meets girls on the internet. And it kind of blew up. And then my writing blew up. And then all those same publishers came back and published my stuff. They wanted to do my books and stuff. And then it just kind of took off from there, man.
So he definitely took the first step. He started writing. That's a crucial first step. But then luck intervened, pushed him further along down the road. But I ask, is this enough? Is this break going to make a best-selling author? What do you think?
It didn't happen fast. That's the thing is my book came out in 2006 and it did well at first, but it wasn't like a overnight hit, man. It was it sold maybe, like 5 or 10,000 copies its first month, and then it like sold way less the next month, and it kind of went down and it bottomed out about 2 or 3,000 copies like 6 months, 9 months after it came out, and then it started growing from there. And so basically the whole thing took off by word of mouth. And it took off because people like you read it, loved it, told their friends, they read it and loved it, et cetera, et cetera. And then it just kind of went from there, man. It was one of those things where if I tried to orchestrate it, like I never would have been able to do it in a million years. But it worked because I started with something that was honest and authentic, like what I was thinking and feeling and doing at the time, and had a real meaning behind it. I was just trying to make my friends laugh, and I happened to be pretty good at it, and it worked pretty well. And so I just kept putting it together and kept pushing it, and then it kind of grew. It's one of those things, you look at famous people or people who are successful, and it seems like they come from nowhere and just kind of spring from the head of Zeus, fully formed and like amazing. But that's just not how it works, man. It took a lot of work and it took a lot of struggle. And I spent a lot of hours at a keyboard typing my stories out and learning how to do that. And then it took a lot of hours like improving them. And it took a lot of hours of hustle to get to sort of to the point where I am now, where I've sold all these books and done all this stuff.
And now the picture is a little clearer. He took the first step, luck intervened. And then he worked and worked and worked a little bit more. And then timing came in. If you think about it, a lot of those stories that we hear have all those three elements: luck, hard work, timing. Timing, hard work, luck. Luck, hard work, timing. And then another factor stepped in. Something that's sort of like luck you can't control. Kind of like the timing, it's out of your hands. But it was crucial for him to be able to hone his writing.
You know how it is, man. Like it was me and 9 guys. We all went to law school together, and they're all smart and they're all good writers too. So like I couldn't write bullshit to them. Like they, like if I wrote bad, annoying, or boring stuff, they would call me out and make fun of it. Your guy friends especially are, break your balls and stuff. So I didn't have an editor. If I had any sort of traditional editor in the writing sense, my writing probably would have sucked, because they would have made it sound like all the crap that every writing school and MFA school puts out. What my friends did is that they forced me, by accident almost, to write something that was funny and relevant to them. And so by doing that, it just turned out that they were a pretty good proxy for a lot of other men and women out there who kind of thought that stuff was funny as well. Like I wasn't writing to be a writer, in quotes. I was writing to accomplish a goal. Business is the same way, dude. I'm sure you know a ton of those people who are wantrepreneurs, right? They're wantrepreneurs because they want to be an entrepreneur, right? That's not how it works. You are an entrepreneur because you solve a problem that people are willing to pay you for, that becomes a business. You get to be an entrepreneur by worrying about solving problems, just like you get to be a writer by sharing thoughts that other people want to read.
Just like luck and timing and opportunity gave him his career path as a writer, it also pushed him away when the time was due.
Well, yeah, so I stopped writing books about all the dumb things I did in my 20s a while ago, because I just, I'm 40 now. And so I don't get hammered every night and try and pick up girls and act like an idiot anymore, because it's just tedious and boring to me now. It was super fun for about 10 years, and then that was the end of it. So I kind of had already written all the stories that I had to write. And my books did well, so I wasn't really, there was nothing I was really doing at the time. I was doing some angel investing and consulting for people and helping them with different things, but nothing that sexy or amazing or whatever.
And then familiar forces stepped in to push him down a new path.
So it was, honestly, man, it was kind of an accident. That's the God's honest truth. Yeah. Well, because here's the thing with so many entrepreneurs is that a lot of times we think we know what would make a great company, but we're wrong. And then it's usually something next to what we think we know. Because it's like great companies are always born because they solve an important problem. right? Or a widespread problem, one or the other. And so my company was no different, dude. I was at this entrepreneur dinner, and this really smart, successful woman came up to me, and she's like, "Hey, I've been trying to publish this book. People have been asking me for 10 years to write a book, and I just don't have the time. I'm running, she runs this big company. She's like, I don't have time to sit down at a computer for a year and spend 1,000 hours typing this thing out and then going through the whole publishing process. She's like, it doesn't make sense. What else can I do? How can I get this book out?"
Lady Luck is not done yet. Oh no. Lady Luck. She keeps coming back.
So my buddy Zach Obrant and I kind of hacked this process together about how do we interview her, and how do we structure her content? How do we get it in her words and her voice? How do we make sure it's a book? How do we blah blah blah? All these sorts of things. And we put this process together. We went to her. We tested it. And I wasn't sure it was going to work, man, but it worked great. And we got this amazing book out of her that was exactly what she wanted, that people loved, and ended up doing amazing things for her. So I went on this podcast, not dissimilar to this one. I went on Lewis Howes's podcast, and I was talking to him about something totally different. And Lewis is really dyslexic, and we were talking about his problems writing his book. And I told him about what we were doing. And he's like, "Oh, that sounds so cool." He's like, "What do you call that?" And this was just something I did as a favor for this woman. It never occurred to me it was a business. And jokingly, I said, "Oh, we call it Book in a Box." And Lewis is like, "That's such a cool name. Everyone out there, try, go check this out, blah, blah, blah." And lo and behold, we didn't even have a landing page up. And so the next day, I get an email from his sound editor who's putting the podcast together. The dude's like, "Yo, I tried to Google this Book in a Box thing. I couldn't find it. Where do I go to sign up?" And I was like, "Oh no." So I told Zach, I'm like, "Dude, we better put a landing page up because this thing might be big." So we did. And when the podcast came out a week later, we ended up doing $200,000 in 2 months or something like that off of the just one podcast. And I was like, dude, there's a massive demand for this. And so that's kind of how it became a company, is people made us do it.
People made him do it. There's no stopping progress. All you can do is go along for the ride or get off the train. The opportunity was there, and he was pulled into the vortex with ticket firmly in hand. But when I asked him to reflect on what's changed in his approach to his work, there's a major lesson that we can all learn from.
Out of my writing career, I probably made, I don't know, who knows, $5 million, and I should have made 50. And the reason I didn't is because I was so selfish, and I was so short-sighted, and I was so stupidly arrogant in ways that I didn't have to be. And I really think that's one of the reasons this company is doing well now, is because I'm way less like that. And I have such good people around me who aren't like that. And I make it, everything we do is about us. It's about doing this, how do we do things that are good for everyone, that make everyone better. It's one of those crazy things where it sounds like kind of squishy and woo-woo, but when you're doing, especially in entrepreneurship, because that's the thing. Here's the thing in entrepreneurship. The key thing that so many entrepreneurs miss is that ultimately companies that solve real problems are the ones that work, And if you think in terms of we, then you can think in terms of problems. If you think in terms of yourself, then it's like you're not really thinking about someone else's problem. But if you think in terms of, okay, what's their problem? How do I solve their problem? And then at the same time, how do I make money doing that? How do I make this work for everyone? Then you're creating value. And if you create real value in the world, it's usually not so hard to monetize it. But most people go in thinking, how do I make money? How do I take money from someone? Which is a different mindset. And it doesn't usually work as well long term.
If you have knowledge you feel you need to share, if you have a book inside you that you need help with, you can check out Tucker and his team at bookinabox.com. Wits About You is supported by FreshBooks. Here's the thing. I can spend hours and hours producing podcasts, but when it comes to invoicing, I can't bear to do it for more than a minute. With FreshBooks, it only takes me 30 seconds to create a professional-looking invoice, so I can get back to doing what I love to do, podcasting. FreshBooks even gives your clients tons of ways to pay online by card, so no waiting for the proverbial check in the mail. Go to freshbooks.com/wits to get a free 30-day trial. That's freshbooks.com/WITS. And write wits about you in the How Did You Hear About Us section. You've been listening to Wits About You. You can find out more about us at witsaboutyou.com. I'm Alex Cespedes. Thanks for listening.